What if I told you that every billionaire, every successful entrepreneur, every person who's made it big has faced the exact same spiritual battle that's keeping you broke right now? And what if the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, left us a blueprint to win this battle 2,000 years ago? Here's the thing nobody wants to admit. Making money isn't just about business strategies, marketing funnels, or grinding harder. It's about confronting the deepest, darkest parts of your psyche that are literally sabotaging your success without you even knowing it. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But here's what he didn't tell you. That power over your mind is the difference between being wealthy and being broke. Today, we're diving into why your relationship with money is actually a mirror reflecting your deepest wounds, and how the wisdom of Rome's greatest emperor can transform you from someone who chases money into someone who it. Stay until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you think about wealth forever. Asterisk, the shadow that's keeping you poor. Asterisk, let me ask you something that's going to make you uncomfortable. Why do you really want money? And before you give me the surface level answer about paying bills or buying a house, dig deeper. What's the real reason? Because here's what Marcus Aurelius understood that most people don't. Our desires aren't really our own. They're echoes of our past, shadows of our wounds, and projections of our deepest fears. Marcus Aurelius had unlimited wealth and power, yet he spent his nights writing about the dangers of attachment to external things. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." But here's the twist. He wasn't saying money is evil. He was warning us about something far more dangerous, using money to avoid facing ourselves. Think about your childhood for a second. When your parents fought, was it about money? When you felt unsafe, was it because there wasn't enough? When you felt proud, was it because your family had more than others? Every single one of these moments created neural pathways in your brain that are now driving your adult relationship with money. And most of the time, you're not even conscious of it. This is what psychologists call the shadow, the parts of our personality that we've pushed down, ignored, or denied. And when it comes to money, your shadow is running the show. Maybe your shadow believes you don't deserve wealth because your parents struggled. Maybe it believes that having money makes you greedy because that's what you were taught in church. Or maybe your shadow is so terrified of being poor again that it sabotages every opportunity because staying small feels safer than risking failure. Marcus Aurelius knew this. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the present is always pleasant, but because it's the only place where you can actually see your patterns clearly. When you're constantly thinking about your financial future or ruminating about your financial past, you miss the unconscious beliefs that are operating right now, in this moment, keeping you stuck." Here's what's really wild. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. So if your unconscious mind believes that having money is dangerous, maybe because rich people in your family were unhappy, or because you learned that money corrupts people, then every time you get close to financial success, your nervous system will literally sabotage you to keep you safe. You might procrastinate on launching that business. You might undercharge for your services. You might spend money as fast as you make it, and you'll tell yourself logical stories about why these things are happening. But the real reason is much deeper. Your shadow is protecting you from a threat that doesn't actually exist. Marcus Aurelius had a practice he called morning reflections, where he would examine his thoughts and motivations before starting his day. He'd ask himself, what am I really afraid of? What am I trying to prove? What wounds am I trying to heal through my actions? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're the questions that separate people who make money from people who make excuses. Because here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. You can learn every business strategy, every marketing technique, every investment principle in the world, but if your unconscious mind believes you don't deserve wealth, you'll find a way to sabotage yourself every single time. Your shadow will make you pick fights with potential clients. It'll make you quit right before breakthrough. It'll make you choose the safe, small path over and over again. The Roman emperor understood that true power, including financial power, comes from self-knowledge, not positive thinking, not affirmations, not vision boards. Self-knowledge, the brutal, honest examination of why you want what you want, and what's really stopping you from having it. So before we go any further, I need you to get real with yourself. What story are you telling yourself about money? And more importantly, what story is your shadow telling you when you're not paying attention? Asterisk, WHY, success feels like betrayal. Asterisk, here's something that's going to blow your mind. For most people, the fear of success is actually stronger than the fear of failure. And Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most successful man of his era, understood this better than anyone. He wrote, "Remember that very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." But here's what he was really saying: when you attach your identity to external success, you become a slave to things that are completely outside your control. And that's exactly what happens to most people when they start making money. They don't just earn wealth, they become wealth. Their entire sense of self gets wrapped up in their net worth, their job title, their lifestyle. Don't think about it. You probably know someone who got successful and then completely changed. Maybe they became arrogant. Maybe they became anxious. Maybe they became someone you didn't recognize anymore. That's not because success corrupted them. It's because success activated parts of their personality that were already there, hiding in the shadows. Marcus Aurelius called this the tyranny of other people's opinions. When you start making money, suddenly everyone has something to say about it. Your old friends might treat you differently. Your family might expect things from you. Strangers might judge you. And without realizing it, you start performing a version of yourself that you think successful people are supposed to be. But here's the psychological trap. Every performance requires you to abandon parts of your authentic self. Maybe you were naturally generous, but now you're afraid people only like you for your money, so you become stingy. Maybe you were vulnerable and open, but now you feel like you need to project strength and confidence all the time. Maybe you used to follow your intuition, but now you only make decisions that look good to others. This is why so many successful people feel empty inside. They achieved everything they thought they wanted, but somewhere along the way, they lost themselves. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly in his private journals. Despite having unlimited power and wealth, he was constantly reminding himself not to get lost in the role he was playing. "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break," he wrote. "It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." What he meant was, let success flow around you, without letting it change who you fundamentally are. But that's easier said than done, especially in a culture that worships wealth. Here's what nobody tells you about making money. It will test every relationship in your life. Your friends might become resentful or distant. Your family might have expectations you can't meet. Your romantic relationships might become complicated by power dynamics you never had to navigate before. And if you're not rooted in who you are underneath all the external stuff, these relationship changes will destabilize your entire sense of identity. This is why so many people unconsciously sabotage their own success. Deep down, they know that changing their financial situation might change their relationships, and that feels like too big of a risk. It's easier to stay broke and maintain the status quo than to become wealthy and potentially lose the people you love. But Marcus Aurelius had a different perspective. He believed that true relationships, the ones worth keeping, are based on character, not circumstances. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't let other people's reactions to your success change who you are at your core. Stay true to your values, whether you have $10 in your bank account or $10 million. The emperor also understood something that most people miss. Success is a responsibility, not just a reward. When you have resources, you have the ability to impact other people's lives. You can create jobs, support causes you believe in, help family members who are struggling. But that responsibility can feel overwhelming if you're not prepared for it. This is why making money is such a deep spiritual challenge. It forces you to confront questions like, who am I really? What do I actually value? How much of my identity is based on what other people think of me? These aren't business questions, they're soul questions. The unconscious beliefs that block wealth. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that will change how you think about money forever. You have power over your mind, not outside events. But here's what he didn't explain. Most of us don't actually have power over our minds because we're not even aware of what our minds are doing. We're running unconscious programs that were installed when we were children, and these programs are making our financial decisions for us. Let me give you an example that's going to hit close to home. Did your parents ever say things like money doesn't grow on trees, or we can't afford that, or rich people are greedy. Of course they did. Every parent says stuff like that. But here's what you probably don't realize. Your 7-year-old brain took those statements as absolute truth about how the world works. And now, decades later, those beliefs are still running in the background, influencing every financial decision you make. This is what Marcus Aurelius was getting at when he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself." He wasn't promoting poverty. He was pointing out that our external circumstances are often just reflections of our internal beliefs. If you believe deep down that you don't deserve wealth, you'll unconsciously create circumstances that keep you from having it. But here's where it gets really twisted. These unconscious beliefs don't just affect how much money you make, they affect how you feel about the money you do have. You might make 6 figures, but still feel broke because your internal thermostat is set to scarcity. You might save money, but then feel guilty about spending it on yourself. You might earn more than your parents ever did, but still feel like you're not doing enough. The Roman emperor had access to unlimited wealth, but he spent his private time writing about the dangers of attachment. Why? Because he understood that how you relate to money matters more than how much money you have. If you're attached to money as a source of identity or security, then losing it becomes an existential threat. If you're detached from money, if you can hold it lightly, then you can make decisions from wisdom instead of fear. But detachment doesn't mean not caring. Marcus Aurelius cared deeply about the Roman Empire's finances because he understood that money is a tool for serving others. The key is caring about the impact you can have with money without caring about what money says about you as a person. That's a subtle but crucial difference. Here's a question that's going to reveal everything. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail financially? Not what would you buy, what would you create? What problems would you solve? What kind of person would you become? Your answer reveals your authentic relationship with money versus your conditioned relationship with money. Most people can't even imagine financial security because they've been in scarcity mode for so long that it feels like their natural state. They've learned to find identity in struggle, meaning in sacrifice, and purpose in surviving. The idea of thriving feels foreign, maybe even selfish. Marcus Aurelius faced this exact challenge on a much larger scale. He inherited an empire, which meant he inherited more resources than any one person could ever need. But instead of becoming corrupted by wealth or paralyzed by guilt, he used those resources as a way to serve something larger than himself. His wealth became a tool for wisdom, not a trophy for his ego. This is the shift that changes everything. Seeing money as a tool for expression, rather than a measure of worth. When you make this shift, you stop asking, "Am I worthy of wealth?" and start asking, "How can I use wealth to express who I really am?" That second question is so much more powerful because it assumes you already have everything you need inside you. You just need resources to bring it into the world. But making this shift requires you to identify and challenge every unconscious belief that's keeping you small. It requires you to notice when you're operating from fear versus when you're operating from love. And it requires you to be honest about the ways you might be addicted to struggle because struggle feels familiar. The emperor's journals are full of reminders to himself to think clearly, act wisely, and not get caught up in the drama of external circumstances. That's the practice that transforms your relationship with money from unconscious to conscious, from reactive to responsive. The spiritual practice of wealth building. Marcus Aurelius had a daily practice that most people don't know about. Every morning he would sit in silence and examine his intentions for the day. Not his schedule, not his goals, his intentions. He'd ask himself, why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I trying to prove? What am I afraid of? What do I really want? And this practice is the secret to building wealth that actually feels good. Because here's what nobody talks about. There are 2 completely different ways to make money. There's making money from fear, where you're driven by scarcity, comparison, and the desperate need to prove yourself. And there's making money from love, where you're motivated by service, creativity, and genuine desire to contribute something valuable to the world. The external results might look similar, but the internal experience is completely different. When you make money from fear, every day feels like survival. You're constantly worried about competition, constantly comparing yourself to others, constantly afraid that you're not doing enough or being enough. You might be successful by external measures, but internally you feel exhausted, anxious, and empty. This is what most entrepreneurs and high achievers experience, even though they'd never admit it publicly. But when you make money from love, from genuine passion for what you're creating, an authentic desire to serve others, work starts to feel like play, not because it's easy, but because it's aligned with who you really are. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "In the morning, when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present: I am rising to the work of a human being." He understood that meaningful work, including the work of creating wealth, is actually a spiritual practice. Here's how you shift from making money from fear to making money from love. You start by getting clear about what you actually want your life to feel like, not just what you want your bank account to look like. Do you want more freedom, more creativity, more time with family, more ability to help others? When you get clear about the feelings you're really after, money becomes a tool for creating those feelings instead of a substitute for them. The Roman emperor had unlimited power, but he used his morning practice to remember that power is only valuable when it's used in service of something meaningful. He'd remind himself that his role as emperor wasn't about his ego, it was about serving the Roman people. This shift from "what can I get" to "what can I give" is what transforms money from a source of anxiety into a source of purpose. But here's where most people get stuck. They think they need to choose between making money and being spiritual, between being successful and being authentic. Marcus Aurelius proved that's a false choice. You can be incredibly wealthy and incredibly wise. You can be ambitious and peaceful. You can care about profits and still care about people. The key is integration, not compartmentalization. This means bringing your values into your business decisions. It means treating your customers, employees, and competitors with respect. It means being honest about what you're selling and why you're selling it. It means creating something that you'd be proud of even if nobody ever knew it was yours. This isn't just good ethics, it's good business, because people can sense authenticity from a mile away. Marcus Aurelius also practiced what he called negative visualization, regularly imagining losing everything he had in order to stay grateful for what he possessed and unattached to external circumstances. This isn't pessimism, it's psychological preparation. When you regularly practice being okay with having less, you can make clearer decisions about how to create more. Here's a practice that will change everything. Every time you make a financial decision, pause and ask yourself, am I making this choice from love or from fear? Am I saying yes to this opportunity because I'm excited about what I can create, or because I'm afraid of missing out? Am I spending this money because it aligns with my values, or because I'm trying to fill an emotional void? This level of conscious decision-making is what separates people who build sustainable wealth from people who just chase money. Because when your financial choices are aligned with your authentic self, you naturally attract opportunities that feel effortless. You stop forcing and start flowing. You stop performing and start creating. And that's when real abundance shows up. Asterisk. Becoming wealthy without losing your soul. Asterisk. Here's the ultimate truth that Marcus Aurelius discovered, and that most wealthy people learn too late. The real challenge isn't making money, it's staying yourself while you make money. The emperor wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together." What he meant was, success will change your circumstances, but it doesn't have to change your character. But staying yourself while building wealth requires something that most people aren't willing to do. It requires you to define who you are independent of what you have. Marcus Aurelius was clear about his values: wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline, and he measured every decision against these principles, not against his net worth or public image. This is what allowed him to wield enormous power without being corrupted by it. The problem is that our culture teaches us to derive our identity from our achievements. We're not just people who happen to have money, we become successful. We're not just people who happen to have started businesses, we become entrepreneurs. And once you start identifying with these external roles, losing them becomes an existential threat instead of just a change in circumstances. Marcus Aurelius had a practice for this. He'd regularly remind himself that he was first and foremost a human being, not an emperor. He'd write things like, "Remember that you are an actor in a play." The play might cast you as a wealthy person or a poor person, but the play isn't who you are. You're the consciousness that's aware of playing the role, not the role itself. This perspective is incredibly liberating because it means you can pursue wealth without attaching your self-worth to whether you achieve it. You can work hard without becoming addicted to work. You can enjoy luxury without becoming dependent on it. You can lose money without losing yourself. This is what true financial freedom looks like. Not having enough money that you never have to worry about it, but having such a clear sense of who you are that money can't destabilize you either way. But here's what this actually looks like in practice. It means regularly doing things that remind you of your humanity. Marcus Aurelius made it a point to spend time with ordinary citizens, not just other powerful people. He practiced philosophy, not just politics. He reflected on death, not just life. These practices kept him grounded in what actually matters versus what temporarily captures attention. For modern people building wealth, this might mean volunteering with people who have less than you do. It might mean pursuing hobbies that have nothing to do with making money. It might mean spending time in nature, practicing meditation, or maintaining friendships with people who knew you before you were successful. These aren't distractions from wealth building. They're what make wealth building sustainable. The Roman emperor also understood that true wealth isn't just financial, it's relational, physical, mental, and spiritual. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life." He wasn't promoting minimalism for its own sake. He was pointing out that when you feel abundant in all areas of life, you can pursue financial abundance without desperation, which, ironically, makes you more likely to achieve it. This is why so many people who chase money from a place of inner poverty end up feeling empty even when they succeed. They were trying to use external wealth to fix internal scarcity. But that's not how it works. Internal abundance is what creates external abundance, not the other way around. When you feel genuinely grateful for what you already have, when you feel confident in your ability to create value, when you feel connected to something larger than yourself, that's when opportunities start showing up everywhere. Marcus Aurelius spent his final years writing personal reflections that were never meant to be published. They were just his private practice of staying conscious, staying humble, and staying human despite having more power and wealth than almost anyone in history. And those writings, his meditations, have influenced more people than all. His political achievements combined as the ultimate lesson. Your relationship with money is a reflection of your relationship with yourself. When you know who you are beneath all the external stuff, you can play the game of wealth without letting the game play you. You can be ambitious without being anxious, successful without being superficial, wealthy without losing your soul. The question isn't whether you deserve wealth, you do. The question is, who will you become in the process of creating it?